Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And I have to tell you, it's amazing to be in London. The weather today is like unbelievable. I don't know if this is normal for this time of the year. Every time I come, it's like raining and drizzly, but today it's sunny because it's Relativity Fest. Welcome. We really have a great day planned for you all, starting with our keynote, where you're going to meet our new Chief Product Officer, Chris Brown, a bunch of our product managers. We're bringing some customers on stage, talking about some of our the progress that we've made on some of our most important product initiatives. We'll also be announcing a new partnership today, talking about a new integration, which I think many of you will be super excited about. And then after the keynote, we're going to dig into to the product, break into sessions. We have a great inspirational keynote at the end of the day, and then we'll close out with a fun social happy hour. And I just want to thank all of our customers who are participating in the day, putting some sessions together. Thank you. I got to tell you, we've had over 1,000 people who registered for the event today, and I'm so grateful for all of you that are taking the time to spend the day with us. It's amazing. This is like our 7th Relativity Fest. There's a lot of familiar faces in the audience. I remember doing this the first time just a few years ago, and the community that you have all helped build is it's crazy. And we host Fest in Europe because we want to give this community a forum to come together, to collaborate and learn from each other, and to feed off the energy from one another. And I hope you all walk away today with a bit more appreciation of how special this industry is. We host Fest because we want to put on a great event for you, because we want to thank you. We want to thank you for being great users of our software. We want to thank you for your ideas. We want to thank you for your innovations, for your feedback, for your patience when we don't necessarily get it right. Thank you. At Relativity, our mission is to help you and all of our customers organize data, discover the truth, and act on it. And the stories that we hear from our customers about the successes that they're having with our product is the fuel and our inspiration to do more. We love building software. We love being a steward of this industry because the work that we all do in this industry, it's important. It's really important. And it's complex and it's hard. We're dealing with ever-increasing data volumes, new data privacy regulations that we need to adhere to, the constant influx of new data types that we need to collect and review from, and the speed at which we need to move, well, it's never fast enough. This industry is relentless. But these challenges ground us as we execute on our vision as a company to simplify and accelerate how we all conduct discovery by bringing it all together in one open and flexible and connected platform. Relativity, it's comprehensive. It's comprehensive. We now give you capability to help you manage the entire life cycle of a project. And it's more than just implementing a piece of workflow. It's how they all come together. It's about having paradigms and constructs that are integrated with each other and can be leveraged, like a searching and visualization metaphors used consistently across the entire system. It's unrealistic for us to think that our software can meet every need on every project. It's unrealistic. And that's why being an open platform is a first-class priority. And this is what so many of you love and appreciate about Relativity. And we'll be double downing on our efforts here. And this year, we'll be doubling the number of APIs that you can work with. We'll also give you the flexibility to extend the viewer in meaningful ways. You'll even be able to integrate it in your own Relativity applications. We want Relativity to be connected. We're making it easier for a third party, as another market-leading e-discovery technologies, to integrate with Relativity. User identity now spans seamlessly from on-premise instances to Relativity One and across all geographies. We've advanced our mobile capabilities, and we have a great new Relativity One application. And we've made great strides in being able to seamlessly collect data from cloud data sources like Office 365 and Slack. The third tenet in executing our vision is all about you and creating amazing network effects for our community, the people and the companies that rely on our software every day. Last month, we've had over 184,000 active users of the platform, managing 200,000 active matters involving over 130 billion files in 47 countries. This community, it's large and it's busy. And we'll continue to invest in our community with our user groups, our online portals, putting on events to foster collaboration and bring energy to it. We've introduced new certification programs. We have our academic partnership program, and now we're integrated in 90 higher education institutions who are now incorporating relativity into their legal curriculum. And as of now, we have close to 3,000 students who have gone through the program. Open platform, connected, with amazing network effects for this community. This is our vision and what we set out to do for the industry. Relativity One and the transition of our delivery model to SaaS is the cornerstone of how we execute on our vision, enabling our customers to do more, to take on new kinds of projects, to develop new and innovative offerings because they have more time, because the burden of managing infrastructure has been eliminated. But it's more than just that. Relativity One provides the very best of what Relativity has to offer. A global reach with the ability to manage projects in 7 geographies worldwide. An industry-leading security posture. Good, consistent speed and performance of batch operations like processing and imaging and productions. And when you have large jobs, the system scales accordingly so you have the throughput to meet your deadlines. The best part of Relativity One is that it gives our customers instant access to the latest and greatest of what our engineering and product teams have put together. With a release every quarter, and we've named them after flowers that are native to the areas close to Chicago. With a release every quarter, we are continually giving our customers a better product. Every quarter, every month, faster performance and increased service reliability. New capabilities to easily support audio, video inside the viewer. Name normalization and our entity object. New short message support. We've introduced a new API Explorer to make it easy for our developers to work with the product. In an upcoming release, we'll be really leveling up our capabilities in active learning with a whole new slew of capabilities. And something that I'm particularly excited about, a refreshed image viewer. Let me geek out with you a little bit on this one. When it comes to speed, giving end users a system that responds quickly is super critical to us and something that we've become pretty obsessed with when it comes to Relativity One. And just this year, there's been over 25 million documents that have been viewed in Relativity. And the speed at which it takes to navigate from one doc to the next is just under 0.2 of a second. We've actually become pretty obsessed with this metric. Now, when it comes to working with images, with image documents inside Relativity, the speed at which we can present them, well, it wasn't as fast as viewing natives. In fact, it was about 6 times slower. And in order for us to get similar rendering speeds, it required us to build a brand new image viewer. And that's what we set out to do, and the teams finished the work, and the results are super exciting. And this will become available to our Relativity One customers in just a couple weeks. And so let's check it out. And so even the largest images with the largest number of pages now just load under 0.3 of a second. We've enriched the functionality all throughout the viewer. We have this great little thumbnail viewer now that actually will show the redactions right within the thumbnail. We've smoothed out the user interface. We've created a whole set of APIs so our developers can actually integrate with the image viewer very seamlessly, as it's super extensible. I really can't wait to see what our customers do with it. Only an e-discovery geek can get this excited about an image viewer. Relativity One, it gives our customers the very best of what Relativity has to offer. And we're super excited about the momentum in the Relativity One community, and we're super thankful for all of our customers and partners for their business and joining us on this transformation to SaaS. Their uptake and usage has been strong. We have over 1 billion documents in the platform, supporting more than 11,000 users. But the best part about the growth that we're hearing in Relativity One is hearing the stories from customers on how they're doing more, how they're saying yes more often. BDO, a global consulting firm with 70,000 consultants, had a very fast-moving and intense investigation that was being handled by a pretty small team out of their Germany office. But it had a unique requirement in that the data needed to be in Brazil so they could adhere to Brazilian data protection law. With Relativity One, they were able to get up and running instantaneously. They quickly processed and reviewed 30 terabytes of data. It was about 4 million documents. They got from nothing to online in 4 days. And then they get the team of experts looking at the data. And this is what's exciting about this transformation to our delivery model to SaaS. It's allowing our customers to do more in Relativity One, having the latest what is available, freeing them of the burden of having to run a complex e-discovery software, and allowing them to leverage their expertise and innovate in the platform in new and interesting ways. More with One. Now I'm going to bring up Steve Cooling to come up on stage to talk about the momentum that we're seeing in your market. Steve, come on up. Thank you. Let's go.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you all again from me. Amazing to see so many people here today. We're really excited about the agenda we have in store. Really excited for the journey that we're all going on. As Andrew mentioned, I'm just going to take a few moments to talk about momentum that we're seeing in the marketplace. And when we talk about the marketplace, obviously it's through the lens of relativity. There are lots of different factors, but one of the things I wanted to do today was just share with you some of the drivers that we see across this marketplace. From that, I'm going to pick out 4 driving factors that we see. First one, the regulators. There's over 90 regulating bodies in the UK. We continue to see activity through those regulators, the competition space particularly at the moment. Driver number 2, alternate use cases outside of e-discovery. So many of you in the room are using Relativity to do things like M&A, contract work, employment investigations, monitoring, surveillance. As a plug and coming up for the keynote shortly as well, please do check out the Relativity Trace product that we're really proud of. Driver number 3, a corporation standardizing on their processes, their legal technologies, their workflows, the providers that they're using. Again, this is a thing that we've seen at pace and really within notably the last 12 months. And then driver number 4 is geographic expansion. So that may be the providers in the room are looking to expand into new markets for new revenue streams or new client bases. You might be a law firm that has ambitions to launch in South America or Asia Pacific and using Relativity One and the data centers there to spin up quickly. You're seeing so much momentum that, as Andrew mentioned on the user counts, roughly 185,000, around about 40% of all new users we see coming into the Relativity community in the system are through this EMEA and APAC marketplace. So again, you're growing at pace, so congrats. Your data, your volumes, your complexity continue to increase as well. There's just shy of 14,000 workspaces in this community. Largest single matter is just over 400 million documents in a single workspace, which is giant. So again, as you're doing all of that scaling, we continue to meet the product demands of that and indeed the innovations that are required. Andrew showed a slide earlier, which was some of our new partners who've joined Relativity One. This is an international specific slide, mentioning those, some of whom are very new, some of whom have been on board not far off from Fest last year. But we're enjoying that journey and enjoying to see you innovate on top of our Relativity One platform. We've opened 4 new data centers. We now have Australia, Canada, Brazil, the Netherlands. And as your demand continues to increase and Microsoft Azure data centers become available, we'll look at it over time in terms of what the next roadmap of locations are and indeed should be. We have 7 as of right now today globally. So again, Andrew mentioning the ability to get up and be global quickly is a key part of our messaging. So having these data centers available and having it accessible for you to get up and running quickly, again, is a key part of our strategy. I'm going to shift gears now away from momentum and talk about the things that we've been doing within the EMEA team to kind of help structure the organization so we're meeting that continual growth. First of all, you may have seen some of the announcements that come through on LinkedIn. We opened a new office. It's by Liverpool Street. It's very cool. For those who haven't been, please come visit us, check it out. We've continued to scale the commercial teams that we have across EMEA. We have 9 new team members joining in the next 2 months. That's in sales, customer success, solutions, Relativity One implementation, and other departments. Our follow-the-sun support model we continue to bolster. So ensuring that we've got this 24/7 line available to you with really well-trained, ready-to-go Relativity experts to keep you up and running if needed. Finally, our Krakow office. Again, you'll have seen some press around this. We had a distinct strategy when we opened Krakow. We didn't want it to just be an outpost of Chicago or London. It started as an engineering and production center. Increasingly now we're scaling it with departments that we need to service the EMEA community, security teams, more 24/7 support through the solutions team. Finally, I'm going to end my section with a success story. 12 months ago, Relativity Fest London 2018, Alan and Overy announced that they were coming on board with Relativity One and talked about some of the reasons of why they'd made that decision. 12 months down the line, we wanted to share with you the progress that they've made. You could roll a video, please.
So there was 3 things that we wanted to do in the first year, to look at the technology, to look at the people, and look at the processes and methodology. It's been a real success story. By every measure that we've set ourselves, we've met and exceeded.
I think there's enormous opportunity within this firm and within the legal industry to bring change through technology.
Alan and Overy is quite smart about looking at what are our client challenges and what is it that we can do, be it technology or process internally, to help facilitate or help achieve a solution for those challenges. Because we adopted Relativity One, our scalability is infinite practically.
We've now deployed Relativity One in the US, in EMEA, and in Asia Pac.
60% or more of our matters are multi-jurisdictional. So we've got to look at e-discovery not only from a London perspective or a US perspective, but globally.
What Relativity One has enabled us to do is to be able to offer our clients a single, seamless solution.
Clients appreciate us being on the latest versions and having the latest tools and techniques. It makes them feel confident that their cases are being handled the best way they possibly can be.
Security within Relativity One is obviously one of the big talking points that we've had with clients, and that we've got Microsoft and Relativity running our security. As far as we're concerned, means that we're as secure as any on-premises capability. It's got to be better than investing it ourselves on-premises.
So working with someone who has the capability to do this is sometimes better than trying to build everything yourself.
You can see when the client starts to deploy its own cloud strategy, then the education within that client is filtering down to the buyers of our services, and so it's becoming more accepted.
Our ability to deal with huge data sets, the fact that we can do that in-house and do it all quickly and for a competitive rate, I think gives us a massive competitive edge.
Working together with the lawyers and integrating the technology, you can save money on the overall length of and cost of the matter. Rather than us having to turn around and say, have you tried this, do you want to do this? They're actually coming to us and saying, we used this last time, it worked very well.
So it's not just about technology delivering something, it's actually about technology working with the rest of the business.
I feel very proud to work for Alan Overy at the moment because of that, because of the commitment that the firms had towards us and a plan. It's a great place to be, and as I say, it makes you feel very proud.
Alan and Overy, everyone, global in 12 months, very, very, very cool. With that, I'm going to bid you all a great day. Get involved, enjoy Fest London, we certainly do. I'm now going to hand over to Chris Brown, our Chief Product Officer. As Andrew alluded to, Chris joined us fairly recently. Him and Andrew were introduced mutually through their hairstylist. Chris brings a ton of new thinking and energy to Relativity that we're all super excited about as well. But with that, you can have a warm round of applause, please, for Chris Brown.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys. Really, really great to be here. Before I met Andrew's hairstylist, I had hair like a Dothraki prince, and then I just said, it looks better. It looks better what Andrew's doing. I'm going to do that. As Steve mentioned, I'm Chief Product Officer at Relativity. I started in November of 2018. I want to give you just a little bit about my background before coming to Relativity. And that is, I've been a CEO before, effectively brought a company to market and got it acquired. I've been a Chief Product Officer before. I spent about 10 years for the company Orbitz Worldwide, an global online travel company that did business all around the world, B2C and B2B. Specifically in Europe, did it with brands like eBookers in Switzerland and the UK and France and Germany, Mr. Jet in Sweden. And it was in that kind of time period that I'd spent a lot of years coming through Europe and kind of thinking about the localization and kind of unique needs of France versus unique needs of Germany versus Switzerland versus Sweden, and kind of think about all those things as we're kind of building out travel platforms, but also getting very acquainted with what makes consumers tick and how to really speed their experiences through a software platform, equally from our B2B platforms that were in these markets. And so when I had the opportunity to kind of choose what was next in my career, I was really looking for a space, an industry that was at the nexus of all the great forces kind of our time from a technology perspective. And those things are stuff that you guys have heard about. And in the legal space, the legal technology industry, the things like artificial intelligence, security and privacy, mobility and IoT, and obviously the movement to the cloud. These forces are totally transforming the industry that we all operate. And one of the things that was so exciting for me in joining Relativity was to be at the nexus of this change. And really, when you've worked in industries like retail that I have, and high tech, and corporate events and corporate travel, there's something so foundational about what we do here in this industry that we're literally the bedrock of democracy, of common law, of basically making that actionable for people, making law more accessible to more people, finding justice in ever more important ways in the way that, and that's all as a result of these transformational changes. That's both becoming easier and in some respects more difficult as this proliferation of data moves around and around and around. And so my job today is kind of think about these vectors of change in the world. And as we think about the product strategy for Relativity, we want to harness some of these momentums, make them available to you in our product strategy and our roadmaps and our capabilities, and ideally help you and the community set yourselves in position to help your customers and your clients achieve justice and find the truth in all the areas that you're working in light of these trends, right? And so a couple of things that we're focused on to kind of make this happen for 2019 and beyond. Number one is simplifying the user experience. So with Relativity, there's tons of great power. With the functionality that you've built on top of Relativity, there's tons of great power. I'm going to bring in a couple of great examples of new things that we're doing in the product to bring that to life. But we want to make it more accessible to more people more of the time. And there's a big emphasis at Relativity on this across product, across sales, across our customer success, across our service delivery function, making everything more accessible, more easy to use. The second piece is making and building a state-of-the-art cloud product to ensure that you guys get all the scale you need, on-demand scaling depending on your various work projects, speed, throughput, security, all the things that you'd expect from a modern SaaS solution. We've got a ton of investment in that space. The thing that makes Relativity very, very unique is its commitment to an end-to-end e-discovery platform. So one of the things that was very interesting to me coming into the industry was getting acquainted with the EDRM and kind of thinking about, and I even talked to one of the originators of the EDRM spec and kind of thinking about how the different pieces came together that formed the sort of the basic building blocks of this industry, and thinking about how computing has changed over the last 15 years and how the original concepts of the EDRM were oftentimes limited by the computing constraints in all the different areas along that journey of where data would flow and where you would discover the truth. And now as we move all of those kind of different pieces to the cloud, and we're able to not think just about these in the serial flow, but also kind of like a modern information worker, what happens when you can use analytics anywhere in your process? What happens when you can identify facts way down the path getting ready for trial, but you can identify those facts way up the path as you're doing processing of data or collection of data. And so we're really committed. You'll see a lot of the work in our roadmap is about not only bringing in these other capabilities, but interweaving them in unique ways to cut down the time it takes you to get to an insight, to get to an action. And then last but not least, our emphasis on the platform. When you think about those vectors of disruptive change that we're all experiencing in all of our different industries, the only way to future-proof the platform for that is to build a platform that is extensible and powerful, that we can continually innovate on and bring new capabilities to market at the heart of what you guys do in the e-discovery space. And so we're really excited on all the investment in the platform. When you think about our full portfolio, we're continuing to keep that a first-class citizen. So I'm going to talk about 4 different things today and give you some examples. Hopefully, my mission is to get you excited. I want you to be curious about some of these things and ask about them later in the day. Hopefully, think about some questions you could kind of ask later. I'm also going to bring up 3 people from my team, 2 different product managers and a GM over one of our products. I'm going to bring up a great customer of ours, and I'm going to bring up a great new partner of ours that we're going to announce all in the next 25 minutes. So it's going to be busy up here on the stage. Okay, but first, I want to talk about the user experience. And like I said, Relativity is focusing deeply on this user experience. It's a massive investment. It's literally one of the reasons I came to Relativity. It was the first set of people I hired into Relativity. It's all about building out a great user experience. And as we think about the need for this, kind of look back at the past and what's changed from consumer landscape over the last 10 years and the enterprise landscape, and some of these things that have changed and the people that have brought about this change really spark kind of what we're doing at Relativity. The first one, as you guys know, does anybody remember the first time they did a Google search? Remember, it was like 2003, you were just out of college, you had your whole life in front of you. Right? Did anybody go back and do a search on Lycos or Ask Jeeves or Yahoo after that? You did, huh? You were really dedicated to Ask Jeeves, right? Okay. One of the things about searching on Google the very first time was I was blown away with the speed. The speed of a platform built in the cloud, built with amazing indexing, built with amazing scale. It basically rendered all other solutions obsolete, right? And if you think of anything that Relativity is focusing on from a product standpoint, or Relativity One in the cloud, and you know from talking with Andrew and hearing from him today, it's an obsession with speed. We know that the work you do that is incredibly important. We know the volumes of data you have to go through to find the truth, whether it's our analytics products or our reviewers. if we can, every ounce of speed we can eke out of the platform is another ounce of justice you guys can find and we can deliver. And so we're super, super passionate about that, and you're going to see more and more investment in that space. The second big move that's changed people's expectations around the user experience is obviously the iPhone. They are quintessential from the design change that they brought to market. And when they came to market, there was a number of naysayers, if you can remember, because the iPhone didn't do multitasking. And the iPhone didn't have a keyboard. And there was no way BlackBerry was ever going to get outdone by the iPhone. But what they kind of proved was really intuitive design, really focusing on time to value, getting you to the parts that really matter, and actually giving you some enjoyment along the way can make a huge difference in the way that you interact with your world. And so obviously the iPhone has seen super success, and we're taking a lot of the kind of insights from that process as well. As we move into the enterprise, just a few weeks ago, Slack went public. Their whole mission and what's made them super successful is they're ubiquitous across every device, whether it's mobile, an app on your desktop, the web, it's the same exact experience. They're connected across all these devices, and they have a huge emphasis about being connected with the rest of the things in your productivity suite and connected with the rest of the world. And that also is exactly one of the key driving principles of relativity. It's about connection and about connecting to all the different things. And one of the partners we'll bring up today is describing that specifically, like our emphasis on connecting people into this ecosystem. And lastly, I think a good example of design and user experience is Microsoft and how they've evolved over the years. They now have a fantastic suite of products, making us ever more and more productive in the cloud. They're thinking about all the different ways that they can leverage collaboration, keep the data where you need it, keep it secure. But they've also transitioned their business, like many of you are transitioning your businesses, and like we're transitioning our business from a business that was providing value on-prem to also a value in the cloud as well. And I think some of the constructs of that are what we're taking kind of principally from our design change. So if you remember back when Microsoft Word was before the cloud, they had an experience that was very much built in a way that I would describe as a default advanced solution. So back when you were working on original on-premises products, you're thinking about a default advanced solution. How do I surface all the different options I have at one time so I can be an expert and really go through this interface in an expert fashion? One of the things you've seen as they've moved to the cloud is they've come out with more of a default simple, optionally advanced platform. When we think about relativity and where we're taking the user experience, the metaphors really come to mind for us as well. We're embarking on creating a default, simple, optionally advanced, always powerful solution that takes all the power that relativity has to offer and making it easier and more accessible to all of you. And that's a big journey for the product. It's a big journey for the platform. It's one that I'm super excited to kind of involve everybody in the audience with. We've got a number of sessions on it today. We've been already working on it throughout this year. We're going to be working on it for the next number of months and into next year. And we're really excited to have you on that journey because as Andrew kind of talked about this community at the start, we want to innovate with you. We want to make you successful, and it's a big part of what we're doing. And why is it important? It's because what you do is massively valuable. You know, there's a ton of customers here with a bunch of unique stories, both in the corporate space, in the government space, in the nonprofit space. Everything you do is extremely valuable. And so when we think about it from an interface perspective, we think about how do we decrease the time it takes for you to get to value? How do we decrease the time it takes to process a job, to get to reviewing a document, to finding a fact, to running a production? And so everything about that interface is about giving you less time to get to the value. And so we do it in a couple of ways. Like we're literally measuring every single click in the system. Particularly with Rel 1, we can now analyze with modern techniques all the different ways you can kind of look at user behaviors and say, hey, people aren't clicking on this thing that much, or hey, they're kind of going to grok this piece of information before making a choice on a button over here. And we're looking at reducing those clicks, reducing the extra pages, helping you place information more smartly so you understand what's happening at any one page faster. You get to understanding, and ultimately you can complete a task or complete a job more successfully and more quickly. And so there's a ton of investment in this space, and we're just sort of at the tip of the iceberg. And as some evidence of this momentum, one of the things you do when you're kind of reshaping an interface is it's not just about the big stuff, it's about the small stuff. And so we had our entire organization a few weeks back comb through every part of the product and say, we've got a channel inside the company we talk on, Slack. We kind of talk about all these things that could improve a user's life. And we kind of quickly assembled and went after a whole host of fixes that are coming out in our Foxglove release. 150 unique ideas to improve the interface. Not big things, but really focusing on tiny things. Simple call to actions, buttons that weren't clear, error messages that weren't clear, things like that that we can kind of focus on to get improvements throughout the platform. And we're going to keep doing this over and over and over again as the muscle around user experience continues to improve. And I have to tell you, small changes, subtle changes make a huge impact. When I was running product for Orbitz Worldwide and eBookers and all these brands, changing a button color could be millions of pounds, millions of dollars. Like clarifying a call to action, improving an error message could literally be making your business plan or not making your business plan. And it's like that attention to detail, that level of experimentation around improving the interface that helps us ensure that you guys are productive and you're able to get to the valuable things that you want to do faster and faster and faster. Taking it up a notch from the small things, we're also considering the ways these transformations to the cloud are changing the needs for people in the legal space and in e-discovery. We're collapsing workflows, so we're integrating with Office 365. So if your company or your corporate customers' data is in the cloud, we're able to collect from that directly as opposed to moving it to on-prem and then back up in the cloud, particularly if it's already in Azure, where our RHEL 1 already works. We've got a number of customers beta testing this product right now. It's set for release later this fall. We've also released a new mobile app, principally focused on design for Relativity 1. It was released in Q1. And the feedback on this application has been really through the roofs from early users of the product. It makes reviewing a snap. It gives you access into information kind of on the go, so accessible where you are. And very importantly, it gives you access and accessibility to documents that you don't have to produce and run into an email and lose the security footprint around for you to see. And so it's a really important thing, not only for your accessibility, but also for the security of the documents you have under review. Moving forward, we are still now thinking about time to value from a workflow perspective. So in Foxglove, the native flower around Chicago and of Illinois, that also happens to be a release of ours in June for Relativity 1, we're also introducing new prescribed workflows or workspace templates. And we're doing them in two areas right now. We're going to be extending them further, which is furthering our point of view on setting you up for success immediately with the release. So we've got one around early case assessment, giving you the tools to quickly streamline culling of data, finding initial facts, getting things rolling. We've also got one around investigations, so built-in dashboards set up for you to jumpstart your investigations. Again, these are templates that we're providing with Foxglove. We'll continue to provide more and more of these templates. Again, and if you look at the sort of time to value of any of these actual templates and what they can do for you, we've got a team of folks literally in a lab counting clicks, trying to reduce what it takes to get to that value faster and faster and faster in a number of ways that we can. And last but not least, we're starting to imagine what that next generation interface is for Relativity. And we would like your help on that. And so we've got a couple sessions today where we're kind of exploring what does the next generation interface for Relativity really look like, and what will it need to do? What kind of information can it, from a default simple perspective, put behind the curtain? What does it need to kind of pull forward? What are the key pieces it needs to keep? So those are some examples of things that we're working on, just concepts. But ultimately, it's about streamlining your review experience, highlighting and making searching more easier, maybe collapsing searching and viewing, bringing forward the actual person who's working on the case, helping you improve collaboration. So lots of things that we're working on an interface perspective. And in fact, like as you'll kind of see from some of the examples I'm bringing up next, we've got over $110 million of investment from an R&D perspective in 2019. So number one, that's a huge investment in our software and our products for this community. And then number two, user experience as a part of that is way up. So orders of magnitude of investment, and we really believe it's about making all the power that comes with relativity more accessible to all of you. And as I said, I'd love to encourage you to innovate with us along this journey. So I really, really appreciate your feedback. So now the second thing I want to talk about is if you think about those vectors of change, particularly around AI. We've been doing a lot of investment in entities and communication analysis and using all kinds of sophisticated tools to understand the most complex thing of all, a real person. And so when you think about a real person, many of you guys are real people. You know, you started your day, you probably woke up with a cell phone alarm, maybe checked an email, got a Slack message, talked to the family, talked to your friends, maybe you sent some emails back to work, you sent a text message, maybe you commented on a small coding project, right? So you've started your day as a human, but then you started to do these things that kind of left sort of digital exhaust. Like every time you interacted the way humans are interacting with the world today, you leave a little bit of this digital exhaust every time you intersect with technology. And this digital exhaust is often sort of the breadcrumbs by which this community starts to piece together back who the real person was, what their motivation was, and ultimately what the facts are of any case, right? And so to talk about our next kind of innovation and what we think we can take with it and make you guys curious and help you guys get curious about what you can do in your worlds, I'd like to bring up Elise Tropiano, our Senior Product Manager of Analytics, to talk more about entities and communication analysis.
Yes. All right. Okay. So starting with our Larkspur Relativity 1 release, we've made it our mission to create order around the people in your data, the entities. So how have we done it? So first, we have a new analytic named normalization, which automatically identifies the entities that are communicating in your data, along with the aliases that they're communicating from. So if you need to locate all the communications that an individual received, you can do so safely knowing that we identified those aliases. And as part of this work, we also created a centralized place to store this entity's information. And this area is not meant to be static, right? So as you learn more information about these individuals, this area becomes constantly augmenting. This is your knowledge base of the people in your matters. And in our most recent Blazing Star Relativity 1 release, we are now visualizing the relationships across multiple entities so you can see who's talking to who's talking the most. And when you combine that with dashboarding, you can see things like what departments' communications look like, or what individuals are involved in talking about a particular topic, a particular concept. So to bring light to this, we are going to do a hypothetical investigation. The premise is that I am general counsel, and I'm investigating a rumor surrounding a Cheryl Nelson. The rumor is that Cheryl was terminated because she surfaced a report that made upper management look bad. And while Cheryl has not taken any legal action yet, we have to understand the risk of a potential wrongful termination suit, something that over half of corporations deal with every year, potentially costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we brought in Cheryl's inbox, as well as the inboxes of the employees that are around near Cheryl's departure, and we've run name normalization to identify those entities that are communicating in the data and their underlying aliases. And because this is a wrongful termination suit, or potential wrongful termination suit, we've also brought in the performance review information from our internal HR and performance management system. This may become a lens through which we can conduct our investigation. So we see the performance review information by department, and we also see the number of performance notices, terrible performance reviews, PIPs as we call them in the States, by department again, and we noticed something suspicious. This is interesting. IT support happens to be doling out a great number of these terrible performance reviews. I'm going to make note of that. So now let's bring up Cheryl here, just to confirm our understanding of her. We do know that she was also working in IT support, She was rightfully documented as having been underperforming at the time of her termination, and it looks like she got that terrible performance review in June of 2017. Okay, so we know two things, right? So we know that IT support is doling out these performance notices in egregious numbers, and we know that June 2017 could be a salient month that we steer our investigation with. Okay, we're going to dive into our documents.
Sounds good.
Okay. And we're going to use the results of name normalization to just focus on the communications that Cheryl received. And as we look at the results, we're also seeing a spike in the number of communications surrounding all these individuals that were given these terrible performance reviews. So we're going to filter on those communications as well to see if this lands on something. And so communication analysis is being drawn on these individuals' communications. And we see Cheryl here is talking to us, Sarah Shackleton. So we're going to focus on those communications. And we're going to open up just a communication between them. And lo and behold, Sarah Shackleton was collaborating with Cheryl to, quote unquote, tweak this report as a way of fabricating this potential wrongful termination case.
Awesome. All right, so what Elise just kind of demonstrated here is entities, name normalization, integrated right to review, right to kind of finding the smoking gun. And also, I think, enriching the data. So she looked at integrating not only the documents from Office 365, but also information from performance management systems, and it's the notion of enriching data that's really awesome. We would love to bring up one of our global investigative customers, Control Risks, Nancy Stevenson, to talk about their experience with entity and name normalization. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. The case study I'm going to present is not an unusual one. In fact, these are sometimes nuisances that you get from clients. Control Risks is a specialty consulting firm, and we help a number of international clients with investigations, disputes, and security, discovery, that type of thing. Earlier this year, the general counsel of one of these corporations contacted us because they had an employee problem, and he wondered whether or not we could get through this employee's data quickly. The employee was the administrative assistant to a local office leader and was in charge, actually, of making all of the conference arrangements, all the travel arrangements, all the hotel arrangements for this large office. And the admin had been flagged as potentially taking some perks from some of the vendors. And so they wanted us to investigate this and make sure that there was no misbehavior here or anything else. So we had a very small window. The GC arranged for us to image the employee's laptop and mobile phone. And when we got back to the office, we took that information, uploaded it to Relativity. This one person, of course, had 100,000 items in those two tranches of data. And so the very first thing we did is we went ahead and we said, okay, we have a limited amount of time here. Let's go ahead and try running the communication name normalcy against the data that's in her files, which we did. And we were able to see all the variants that you would expect to see in just running frequency lists. But we also saw the analytics pivoted off of other information that this employee had. So we got some other versions of this person's communications that we didn't expect. We also got different domains with whom she had been communicating. So we took those results. We did have a list of vendors and individuals that we expected that she would be communicating with. We took some of these new names back to the GC. We added those to the group. But we also decided to take a look at some of the concepts, just like in the example, and looked for words like gift, gift certificate, complementary, and found some additional names that, again, were not on the original list, and took those back to the GC. And so we narrowed our results down to a subset of documents that we thought they could use for purposes of establishing any case that they had. We ended up with 600 documents. So in a week, we took it from 100,000 documents down to 600 documents. Not the terabytes of data I'd like to be processing, but it took just as much time as it would if you took a large set of data and ran it through the same type of analysis. And it should really be incorporated into any kind of processing that you do in general because the results are so good. So that was basically it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and Nancy, can you share how you would have conducted this investigation without name normalization, communication analysis?
This is a hunt and peck type of thing. We would have run searches back and forth between three of the parties, the admin, a vendor, admin, another vendor, and then ultimately tried to figure out if there were any related entities that we needed to look at. It would have been much more difficult and taken much more time. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so, it also seems like you just scratched the surface in communication analysis. So how do you plan on continuing to use it?
I think anything with, anything that helps us identify names. I spent years in a law firm, and you can spend weeks rerunning your entire filters because you discover along the way that there are different names and different entities that you need to incorporate into your filters and into your searches to be inclusive and make sure you didn't miss anything. For privilege purposes, you can identify information between two people that you wouldn't necessarily expect. For purposes of redacting documents, for security, for GDPR, it's a good way of identifying names that, again, you wouldn't necessarily recognize. In investigations for OFAC, you get these blacklists that are generated on a regular basis, but those blacklists are being updated all the time. If you could, in advance, take a look at some of the potential risks that you have out there, you might be able to avoid sanctions in some cases. Yeah.
Awesome. That was great to hear from you both. Thank you guys.
Thanks very much.
Thank you guys. Thank you. So that was a look at entities and communication analysis integrated with review. And as many of you guys have heard with Relativity One, analytics is included in Relativity One. And so it's about thinking about all these different types of capabilities at any step of your investigative or review process. The next thing I want to talk about is back to that vector of change around mobility and what that's meant to the way humans interact throughout every piece of their life is now obviously creating all kinds of different information and communication flows that present challenges for investigators. To give you a piece of how this, to give you some insights on how this is sort of changing the landscape, it's both information from mobile phones, but just this notion of mobility has also certainly affected the way we work every day. Right now, today, Microsoft Teams has 329,000 enterprises using this product. Microsoft Teams is the new kind of chat product modeled after Slack. Microsoft has reported of all the products Microsoft has ever built in the history of Microsoft, it is by far the #1 fastest growing product they've had of all time. Slack has 10 million daily active users. They just went public a couple weeks ago. They have a mission to effectively be as ubiquitous as electricity in such that every organization, every app, every piece of flow that you rely on in an enterprise has some touch point either directly with Slack or via an integration, your call center routing, your Salesforce tickets, whatever you're doing is all kind of integrated in Slack. That is their mission around this notion of electricity. And then at the beginning of it all was this notion of text messages and WhatsApp messages and WeChat messages and Facebook messages and Snapchat messages and other kinds of messages. And what are we doing with all these messages? 23 billion messages sent a day. Right? And many of them, 80% of the people, in fact, in the United States that do text messaging also do it for business, right? And so this is the landscape that we're operating in right now. To give you a look at what it's done just at Relativity, just in the last 12 months, we've sent more Slack messages and other kind of messages and comments around communications, twice as much, in fact, that we do email within the organization. And this number is mostly without our customer group and sales teams using Slack, who just have gotten onboarded in the last few months. So imagine what will be next year when all those folks are chatting about all the people in this room on Slack. And so this is not unique. This is a lot like many organizations where the amount of communication flow outside of email is in some cases a multiple, in some cases many multiples of what's happening in email. And some of these conversations happening here are unguarded, they're more informal. A bunch of executives interviewed by CNBC believe that these communications have the real nuggets in terms of finding out the motivations and things that are happening within an organization, whereas emails certainly can be a little bit more formal. They're not going to replace email, but the combination is now required to kind of find the truth of any matter. But I've kind of left the last vector of change in the industry to talk about the one that is probably the most impactful, the most transformative to the legal industry. One trend that promises to shake the very bedrock of common law, and that is emojis. Emojis are everywhere. They mean all kinds of different things. They're finding their ways into cases, and I'm only in half jest. What does this emoji mean? Is this person guilty? Is this person innocent? What did they mean when they threw an animated GIF into a conversation with a meme on it? What did that meme mean? Nobody knows what a meme means, right? And now we're actually having to kind of make sense of this information in the body of a review. And to kind of help make sense of this for us, I want to invite up Jim Whitty, our Senior Product Manager of Review at Relativity, to talk about everything we're doing in short messages. So Jim, welcome up.
Thanks, Chris.
So Jim, no, emojis aren't shaking the bedrock of common law, but short messages have been notoriously difficult to deal with in review. Why has it been so difficult?
Absolutely. There just hasn't been a good way to ingest, analyze, review, and produce this type of data in the past. If customers wanted to review short messages, they'd have to get creative or use a different tool altogether. And like you were pointing out before, more and more, these channels are being viewed as where the good stuff is happening, types of information sharing and conversations that will definitely make its way into a matter. So we wanted to make it easy for you to review short messages, and we've developed a new format that can be loaded directly into Relativity. It's known as the Relativity Short Message Format, or RSMF for short. No pun intended. I couldn't help myself. So by leveraging this format, you're able to take data from mobile, chat platforms, collaboration tools, and many, many more, and have it display in Relativity as you would see it in the native application. And this includes things like emojis, reactions, likes, and comments to provide that critical context in understanding your conversations. Also, we want to help the industry standardize on this format. So what we're doing is we're looking to integrate with a variety of different data sources to make it easier for you, our customers, to get data into Relativity. And as evidence of this, we're really excited to announce our first provider that we're integrating with. That would be Celebrite. And we'd like to invite Shahaf Rozansky, the head of private sector for Celebrite, to come on up here and talk a little bit more about our partnership and our integration. Welcome, Shahaf.
Welcome.
Welcome, Shah. Glad to have you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here in front of this amazing crowd, and thanks for working together with us to make a change in the e-discovery world. So for those of us that do not know Celebrite well, so we are a leader at what we call digital intelligence, which eventually what means to our customers is the ability to harness the power of digital data. It goes in two manners. The first one is the ability to collect that information. So to collect the information from mobile devices, from cloud, from other devices. And the other manner is the ability to use that data, make sense out of it, investigate the data, and eventually get to your results. So we are mainly working with law enforcement. However, at the beginning of this year, we took a very important decision that we want to focus on the private market. We want to help law firms, we want to help service providers, we want to help corporates do more with digital data around e-discovery and corporate investigation, and this partnership is definitely a major step for us as part of that.
That's awesome. You guys want to show something?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So what do you got?
Good. So I think that the best way, to describe what we are doing together and what we call the Celebrite legal view is to talk about a fictitious case. A few weeks ago, the UK Security Authority got a note from a whistleblower that there is inside or trading based on inside information from a few employees of company A. Now, the security authority did its investigation, and eventually it's come into a place where it went into company A and said, listen, we have 3 employees that we believe that are the ones that are doing the inside trading, and therefore we want to get information from there. And based on the discussion with the general counsel of company A, it was decided that the phone of a person named John Edge will be taken as part of the investigation, will be reviewed. And now, John Edge have iPhone. And for those of you that might not know, iPhone is a really big challenge for the digital forensic world. Why is it a challenge? Because most of the solutions that are available today for collecting information from iOS devices doesn't bring all the information. And then what happens is that eventually the law firms or the general counsel comes to the service provider or to the in-house team that were doing the collection and asks them, listen, I was scrolling through the WhatsApp messages. I don't see that message in the output that he gave me. How come? Now, we mentioned that at Celebrite we put a lot of focus around mobile. Probably this is how you know us best. So we have a very unique solution that actually is capable of capturing that information out of iOS devices. And now you don't no longer need to worry about missing out a WhatsApp conversation, missing out a Facebook message, images, and so on and so forth. So back to our case, company that is excused at inside the training. 8 trading, and we are now taking the iPhone of John Edge, and we want to start processing it. We will look into Celebrite UFED in order to collect the information. And what you can see over here is the fact that we are connected the device to the UFED. We are selecting what we would like to extract out of this iOS device, out of John's phones, and we are collecting the information and creating a forensic copy. Forensic copy, why does that matter? Because eventually we are dealing with evidence, something that we want to rely on, so we want to be sure that the extraction was done in the right manner. Once data was collected, now we are switching over to processing the data and preparing it toward the review platform, toward Relativity. So we are ingesting that into physical analyzer, and you can see in a second all the information that is available from the phone. You can see the chat messages, the SMS, the locations, the photos, all that were available on the phone itself. However, now we need to be a little bit cautious because, you know, while John might be accused at inside trading, it doesn't mean that we actually want to see what he was doing in his weekend. It's not fair. We are not controlling his privacy. So there are 2 ways to address that. One of those is to do it while we are collecting the data and only collecting relevant piece. And it is possible as part of the UFED software that we've just seen. But another way that we will just demonstrate is the ability to select just the relevant data. And in this case, we just wanted information or the WhatsApp conversation between John and James Bond. And this is the only piece that we will collect and export into the Relativity short message format. So it will be available for a review later on. So keeping the customer or the custodian privacy is very important. So now that we have the information, I'm handing it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
So we've released our Relativity short message capability in our Blazing Star Relativity 1 release. So it's just been out for a couple months. But now that I've taken this data, as soon as it's done exporting here, done, awesome, I'm able to process this using Relativity's processing engine. So directly into Relativity, very minimal hops in terms of taking data from Celebrite directly into our platform. And let's take a look at what that looks like. Here we can hover over participants, the platform, the conversation, and get more information about the collection that just took place. We also have the ability to embed attachments. So things like voicemails, where we really get a 360-degree view of all the different components that happen in a conversation. And by using processing, we're able to extract metadata, assign families, do everything that relativity processing is able to do. Let's also keep scrolling down a little bit so you can see things like emojis and avatars. Oh, it looks like our culprits were enjoying a little post-dirty deed celebration with an animated meme here. I don't know what a meme is, but I think that's a good example of it. Let's also take a look at some of the tools that we've built. So we have a timeline that you can use to drill into the conversation and easily navigate and get to certain parts of it with just one click. But it's not just a tool for navigating. It's also a tool that you can use to bubble up relevant information, like search hits. And it's not just vanilla search hits. It's really complicated things like an emoji in a proximity search.
Yes.
So here we can see our culprits had used the money bag symbol to sort of tip to infer certain things, and we're able to build that into a proximity search, which is really powerful. And then last but not least, the data doesn't do any good if we can't get it out of relativity. So we're able to image, redact, brand, and produce it with all of the tools that you have available in the Relativity platform. So just to kind of close up here, we were able to go from a device, mobile collection, all the way to production. That's a really powerful workflow.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. What's next for the partnership?
So obviously we want to do more, and this is just the early bird of what we are doing. We want to make the process more streamlined, more data ingested, make it more easy for you to eventually analyze the information within Relativity. These are part of the things that we are currently thinking together how we can do better for the e-discovery world.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks a lot.
Yes. Really powerful stuff. We're going to be here all day. I hope that sparks some curiosity. I would love. I'm sure Celebrate and us. We'd love to hear some of your ideas about how we can make this even more ubiquitous. When everybody has this kind of power in their hands, how many more text messages will make their way into discovery processes? How many more Slack messages will make their way? How will we help people find justice in more and more of these areas? So this is really exciting stuff built natively into the review platform of Relativity. The last thing I want to kind of walk through here is, if you think about, we've talked about analytics, we've talked about short messages, we've talked about user experience, addressing the major kind of momentum, the major vectors of change in our industry, and we've talked about them in managing those things from an e-discovery standpoint. But the next logical step is, how do I use this information, this great power around analytics, this great power around review, this great power around understanding short messages, and how do I use that proactively in proactive compliance and monitoring solutions so that we can prevent some of this behavior or catch it early enough to avoid some of the major complications of it proliferating downstream. And why is that important? From talking with the industry over the last 10 years, from meeting with many of you and kind of all the work that you're doing, there's been a sea change since the financial crisis of 2008. There's been tighter regulations. In fact, there's been over $320 billion of fines levied. The 80 billion in fines expected in the next year, just in the financial surveillance kind of area, just in the space around ensuring that we have more lawful practices in all these kind of key areas that affect everybody in society. And just this last week, we've had 5 banks in Europe also kind of get a pretty big fine in areas that I'm sure that they would have liked to prevent and ensure that they had better practices in. And there are things that, like, if you connect real time, there are ways to prevent this activity that are not so unobvious. So this is an example from a Bloomberg chat that was caught late last year. So some things take algorithm upon algorithm, multiple AI models to figure out. Some things don't. Some things you just need to be watching, right? So I'd like to bring up Jordan Domash, our general manager of Relativity Trace, our new product built specifically for this use case. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris. Relativity Trace is our new application built on top of Relativity, specifically for proactive compliance monitoring. We've seen a lot of momentum since the launch just last year. We have customers running in production at scale using Relativity to proactively detect criminal behavior happening in their organization. And I'm excited today to announce 2 launch partners, Deloitte and FTI. Both Deloitte and FTI have deep experience supporting their customers around processes and technology around different compliance problems. That, combined with their global reach with Relativity One, will allow them to support customers and customers of Relativity Trace getting ahead of this non-compliant behavior and getting ahead of risk in their business. When we think of Relativity Trace, we're not talking about e-discovery here. We're really talking about getting ahead of different behaviors. The best time to use Relativity Trace is when there is a specific behavior in your organization that you want to get ahead of. And there is a defined set of individuals who you know are at risk of that behavior that can have a major impact on your business. When we think about what the workflow that Relativity Trace powers, there's a few steps in that process. The first is automated ingestion. We have the ability to capture a variety of email, chat, and audio data sources and bring all of that content into Relativity One automatically. We have the ability to extract the text and metadata and index all of those communications so they're search ready. You then can create a set of rules that define the content that is relevant to you. And all of these rules, once they're enabled, they generate alerts. The compliance review team just focuses their energy on the alerts that have been generated for you. And what's really powerful is the alerts are fed back to the Trace rules engine. And with machine learning, the rules are getting smarter and smarter over time, leveraging all the analytics we've invested in over the last 10 years across the Relativity platform. And from an email being sent to an alert being generated, that all happens without any manual manipulation of the data. And we support 40 data sources out of the box. Email, financial chat platforms like Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters Chat, enterprise chat platforms like Skype and Teams and Slack. We have the ability to capture all of these data sources and programmatically bring them into Relativity. Our most popular data source is Office 365. To set up an Office 365 data source in Relativity Trace, the first thing that you have to do is just create a new data source, give it a name, and select the type of data source. In this case, it's our Exchange EWS connector. You then set up an integration point profile. For those that aren't familiar with Relativity integration points is how we configure the field mapping, so how data from Office 365 will get loaded into Relativity One. You set up a username and password, so we're authenticating directly to the Office 365 instance. There's also a monitored individual object. The monitored individual object is where we store all of the metadata around the specific individuals that we're going to be monitoring. You just get an export from the client system, from the HR database, load that into Relativity along with all of the metadata around those individuals. And once they're linked to the data sources, we'll be pulling their communications directly into Relativity One via Relativity Trace. Once the Office 365 data source is enabled, anytime someone sends or receives an email, it's going to be pushed directly to Relativity, where we will alert on that content automatically. And we're not just talking about email. We have a data source for Bloomberg, as we called out. And our Bloomberg data source is RSMF compatible. So all of the innovation that we've invested into the platform with our new short message viewer, you can use in Relativity Trace. We can now review Bloomberg messages directly in their native format. And there's lots of ways to get notified about an alert, right? Obviously, you can look at tagged documents in Relativity, but there's also email notification, Slack notification, and mobile notification with the new Relativity One mobile app. So if you're a senior compliance officer and you want to get notified of your highest risk content on the go, you can get that sent directly to your phone. And it's not just financial services where Relativity Trace can be helpful. Any type of bad criminal behavior, anti-competitive behavior, collusion, price fixing, money laundering. There's lots of use cases where Relativity Trace can help you get ahead of that bad activity, detect it right away, so you can quickly investigate it and take corrective action. Thanks.
That's awesome, Jordan. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So I hope you can kind of see there what we presented with Relativity Trace. It's accessing some of these same data sources we access for e-discovery, but now real time, always on, always monitoring, always automated. Really, really exceptional stuff that many of you in the community have actually helped us kind of like envision and innovate on, and very excited to kind of bring it to market. So we've talked about a lot today. I'm about to kick you off into the next set of sessions. You can see there's a lot of areas that we're investing to kind of address these vectors of change in our industry. We're super excited about it, and I want to do one last thing, which is ultimately thank you and thank every one of you for being here today. I know from Andrew, from Steve, from all the presenters that came up here, we're really excited to work with you today. There's about 40-ish Relativity folks around here today that would love to kind of talk with you and learn more about all of your needs. So with that, thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you the rest of the day.